Hello, welcome to The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today I hope to give you some insight on how college recruiting happens at a Division I level type school for a non-revenue sport such as field hockey. Our guest today is Dan Hussong, and he's the assistant field hockey coach from Rider University. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, good to be here.
Great. So usually my first question with all of my guests is, where did they go to college? So where did you go to college?
I went to college in upstate New York, part of that SUNY system, the State University of New York system at Brockport.
Oh.
So up in that, between Rochester and Buffalo area in upstate New York.
And did you play any sports?
I did. I played college basketball there,
Oh.
so at the Division III level. I'll date myself with this, but my sophomore year, we were in the first Division III Final Four.
Wow.
As it was the first year for Division III. It used to be small college, large college, but then that year in 1975, all things changed in divisions.
And then what happened after you graduated?
I got a job down here in New Jersey, a school system right near here, West Windsor, Plainsboro, and I had never stepped foot in New Jersey, but when I came down, as a teacher, as a phys ed teacher. And so I coached and I've taught phys ed, and I'm still doing it to this day. I still sit at the same desk and teach in the same gym that I started in.
Wow.
Way back then.
So how did you end up at Rider University as an assistant coach?
All right, so that was through marriage. My wife Lori, who was an All-America player at Trenton State College, now College in New Jersey, was the field hockey coach. So she was my assistant basketball coach at West Windsor, Plainsboro.
Oh.
So through the course of things, she was doing a great job with her high school field hockey team, and asked me if I would then start shooting at her goalies and help her out with that, and I said sure. So while she was my assistant in the winter, I was her assistant in the fall.
Oh, wow.
And so funny, in 2000, Ryder, knocked on her door and said, would you like to do this at the Division I level? And she was maybe a little intimidated by it and thought,
Sure.
no, I'm doing a great job at what I'm doing. But I talked her into it. I said, let's do that. That sounds like fun.
Wow.
So
and how many years have you been doing it now?
And so now we just completed our 14th year at Rider.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
And how's the team been going over the 14 years?
We've done very well. It's a smaller school. We have limited scholarships. But we have, other than our first season, we've had all plus 500 records. We've won our conference regular season title, I believe, in 8 of those 14 years, and then the outright conference title, I believe, 6 of those years. So,
wow.
And that leads you to 6 trips to the NCAA. If you win your conference tournament, you get a chance to play in the big tournament with all the big schools. And so,
and have you ever won?
We have not won that NCAA game, but we've come ever so close. In fact, 2 years ago, we were in overtime with Princeton, which, Princeton's, they're top 5. They're there. And even, 2 years before that, we were all over Albany, and we played a great UMass team into overtime. So
wow.
We're right on the edge of it, and that's what we're chasing. Instead of seeking the national title, because that would be almost unrealistic without a full, being fully funded. And we'll talk about that as we go. But our big plum is to make that NCAA, try to get in that final 16.
Wow, that's great.
That would be a home run for us.
So tell me, field hockey is a non-revenue sport. It's not football or basketball at the school. So how does a coach work with a non-revenue sport? Is there a budget that a non-revenue sport gets?
Every school is different. Rider's a private university, so they have their numbers that they use in each athletic team for their athletic scholarship. So I said we're limited. Some schools are what we call fully funded, meaning they have 12 full scholarships to offer. So most like the ACC schools and Big Ten and major conferences.
So their budgets are much higher. They get more donations, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that builds up the money.
Yeah.
I got you. All right. And so how do you go about recruiting your student athletes?
Okay. What we have to do is, we have to sell like a whole college experience, because, we compete with those schools. We'll go after some of the same recruits, and some people, might think, well, that's foolhardy. These kids, if they can go big time, they want to go big time. But what we sell is that there's a great experience to be had at many different levels, and sometimes a better experience, for, depending on that individual. Yeah. Maybe at the mid-major level, like we are, or even a Division III level. In field hockey, yeah, there are high-powered programs, but we feel that within our boundary lines, we're competitive. We're competitive even at the highest level. We couldn't take every day of it, right, but we can when we poke our nose in there. Then we can compete. So what we do is we try to sell that there's a whole college experience. We want our athletes to be complete student athletes, gotcha, and they're not going to just play field hockey the whole time they're there. And
so what's the process? What do you go through as an assistant coach to find these kids?
Okay, now that we've had repeat success, it becomes easier. In the beginnings, we would have to really, beat the bushes. We would have to go out and try to find as many names as we could and go to all the national tournaments for clubs and get around to high school games and, try to make our name known and go for a bigger fish net to bring them in and see who we could get.
Gotcha.
Now we've got a little bit of a track record, and so we get contacted by a lot of people. And so, a lot of kids are attracted to successful programs. Some kids prefer a smaller school environment or a smaller conference, gotcha, environment. And so now it's not like we don't go out and pursue kids, we do, but we also get a lot of contacts from kids.
And how many assistant coaches are there? Is it just you?
No, there's me. I'm the paid assistant, and then we have an unpaid assistant. So we actually have a staff of 3, and we even have another voluntary assistant who does film and stuff like that, filming games for us and stuff.
So does your wife, the head coach, go out and watch games as well?
She does. She does. Yeah. Mainly we try to work it in this regard. I do a lot of the grunt work, right, and she's the closer.
I gotcha.
So when we get to the point where we know we want this kid, and we want to bring them in for meetings and get to know you, right, then we like to introduce them to Lori, and she's very accessible and
great. So what happens then when a student athlete is interested in Rider University? What's the process that student athlete goes through?
You know what? A lot of it is on the student athlete now, and it's become more prevalent. Some use agencies. Some just sell themselves. They make contacts. Email is a terrific way to do it. If you can send a video attachment of your play, right, that's really good. And then if you send your resume or you fill out a questionnaire that shows, what your schoolwork is like. I mean, we love good students because like on a limited budget like ours, mm-hmm, we also, Rider's very liberal in their academic scholarships. So if we get a girl that has good SAT scores and a commensurate, solid GPA, we can get them a solid academic package, wow, maybe supplement that with athletics, and then you get a really good deal.
So are most families in the mindset of you're going to try to make the school reasonable for them?
Yeah, I think the better the player, the more schools that are pursuing that player, the better possibility they have of that. And so if they have other offers that they can, play these off of, and then that's going to be to their advantage.
Gotcha.
So terrific players are terrific players. They win you the games.
Right.
So better players might they're going to be getting probably more athletic money than say an average player.
So how do you go about recruiting the players? How many players are you recruiting, and how many do you actually take?
Okay, that's a good question, because there's every school is different, I think, and every recruiter is different. Some people go for a big fish net, like I said. We used to try in the beginning, but that I found was more impersonal, and it was we were trying to get the best darn kids we could get, and as many as we could.
And how many was that? Was that like 500, 1,000?
No, it would be like probably about maybe 100 to 150 for, say, 5-6 positions that you have, wow, that you're trying to fill, and each one specific to the area of the field. Like a goalie is a completely different recruit, yeah, and then you've got defense, midfield, and forwards. So if you need forwards, you bring in more forwards. Now we've kind of changed it in that, because we get a lot of feedback and we get a lot of exposure to kids, then we'll target, say if we need 3 forwards, we target about maybe 15 to 20 girls that we really think would be a good fit for Ryder, a good fit for our system, a good fit for the school, and then we concentrate on them. We like to stay in touch with them and see, you know, if we can't get, you know, those 3 out of that batch.
And when does the student start to find out, you know, the different types of monies that are available? Is it their sophomore year, junior year, senior year? Is it any year?
It can be any year now, and it's getting earlier for kids now. Kids are now getting, like, you know, verbal agreements with colleges at younger ages, which you can do. If they come to your campus, you can talk freely. You can offer, you know, a scholarship and get a verbal agreement with them. Nothing can be binding until they sign their national letter of intent, which everything goes in writing, exact figures, and they know.
And that's when?
Well, for field hockey, it's February 5th.
Okay.
So that would be after or during their senior year.
Gotcha.
So, but a lot of commitments are made long before that. That just makes it official. And most everybody sticks to their verbal agreements, and some kids will change, and most colleges don't try to impinge on, you know, somebody else's protected players. You know, they don't, you know, try to take,
unless the kid is not really decisive on really going to that school.
Yeah. Some kids, you'll see it in basketball a lot. They'll wait until the last minute, and then they'll have a press conference, and then they'll show you what hat, you know, and this is where I'm going. That's got to be nerve-wracking for all those other coaches that are hoping. Because if they lose that number 1 recruit, they're on to their number 2, who might go somewhere else, and to their number 3. And
so how do you go about combating that? Because is every sport pretty much the same? I mean, you're recruiting a bunch of kids, and you don't know where those kids are going, because they're going everywhere.
I think that it's in the non-revenue sports, there's less anxiety at the finish line that kids might switch. But I think that most times there's a good agreement between that student feels pretty comfortable with that coach or those coaches and the players on the team. And it's something we always recommend to our recruits. You know, when we get a kid who's looking at Ryder for the first time and just thinks, I love it, I want to go here, and hasn't taken her visits anywhere else, we'll often recommend you should probably take your visits, you know, and see the other colleges, because you don't want to, the first day you have a bad day on the practice field, feel like, oh man, I should have been at such and such, you know. You'll feel like, well, I looked there and I talked to those coaches, I met their team, and this is what I chose over that. And I think it really, it's an honest way to do business for us, and you know, you run the risk of maybe losing a recruit, but at the same time, it solidifies it. It makes you feel like this kid really wants to come here, and they feel like, hey, I checked everything else out, and this is, you know, this is where I saw myself most comfortable.
I totally understand it. It's really being very competitive out there these days, and where do you see yourself within the next few years of recruiting? Is field hockey an upcoming sport? Is it really growing now, or not?
Okay, I would say it's not growing. I'd say it's stable. It's stable, and it's not going to be a TV sport because it's not well understood. It's not as popular as basketball and football and, you know, the major sports. But it is an interesting and intriguing sport in that it has an intense following. Like the field hockey world, most everybody knows one another.
Really?
And, you know, from the top to the bottom, we know who each other are, and I think there's a like and a respect amongst, you know, that community. And kids that want to get recruited into it, you know, they're impassioned by it. Like when you go to like the Disney showcase, you know, everybody knows everybody. Everybody wears their colors, and so when kids
how many
see
teams usually go to that type of showcase?
There would be thousands of kids.
Really?
Yeah, it's a showcase, so all the clubs put in teams, and then they'll
from across the country.
From across the country. Some even outside the country. Canada sends teams.
Really?
And so, and that's the big grab for the American kids. Now there are a lot of foreign kids that play this sport in this country, and we happen to have 3 on our roster right now from different parts of the world. We've had great success with kids from Spain, and we do have one girl from Barcelona on our team now.
So they play field hockey everywhere?
They do. They do.
Really?
In fact, they play great field hockey in other countries. Sometimes they'll, they're a little bit ahead, I think, of the States in like their development. So there are a lot of foreign stars that, that dot the map of field hockey in this country, and they're good. Sometimes they can raise the level of your program, with what they bring to the table.
Are there a lot of colleges out there that recruit international kids?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, most, I would say more than half probably have a foreign kid or more on their team. Some, 6 or 7.
Wow.
So, and it's what a great experience for these kids. They get to come to the States. They get a great education.
Right.
Generally it's mostly paid for through scholarships. And, and they take a 4-year experience with them that's, second to none.
So how many legal visits does a student athlete get?
They can take 3 officials. So, or actually, no, they can take 5 official visits.
Okay.
So, that's a pretty good, assessment they can make, because if you go to 5 different schools, you're going to meet with 5 different coaching staffs and 5 different, group teams.
And then the rest they have to pay for themselves.
Yeah, they can unofficial visit. They can, if there's local colleges, a lot of kids do that when they can just, without staying overnight. It's easy. They can just go to that campus and get to know everybody. But you're allowed 5 official visits.
So is the central New Jersey area, is it pretty heavily recruited for field hockey?
It is. New Jersey is what we call a hotbed. New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
Really?
Yeah, Pennsylvania is really, really good. I mean, it's a fertile recruiting ground. Everybody's in here recruiting, yeah, and Pennsylvania as well.
Holy cow! And how many schools have field hockey?
The number changes, but I believe it's 75 right now. Division I programs that are, and Division I means that they're given some form of scholarship money. And then there's about 12 or 13 Division II. It's a much smaller clutch of schools, and then there's hundreds of Division III programs.
And they offer money just in something else. They don't give it in scholarship.
Yeah, in Division III there are no athletic scholarships. That's the difference. So sometimes people say, my son got a scholarship to play baseball at a Division III school, and he probably got an academic scholarship, grant and need or something.
But that's it.
Yeah. But Division II and Division I are where the academic or the athletic scholarships are.
So what's the philosophy of the team?
Our philosophy is, even though everybody was the star of her high school team, is to play like as one and to humbly pitch in everything you got. And that works. If you can get kids to buy into that philosophy, then you progress, and you have kids who are hungry and eager to help each other and share the ball and sometimes do the dirty work while somebody else gets the goal. That's probably been Lori's key to success over her coaching career, is making everybody realize that if you become a part of something bigger than you, you'll have a lot more fun and it'll be more satisfying.
So how does the roster of the team actually break out? Is there a lot of freshmen on the team? Is there a lot of seniors on the team?
That varies from year to year. When sometimes you get a big recruiting class in, but it almost always balances out to about 5 in a class. So the roster is usually around 20. It can go up to 24, but it can be as low as like 17. Because you play 11 at a time. And you can't scrimmage in practice if you have that lower number, but a lot of times that makes for a nice chemistry, a smaller number, and everybody's happy.
So a lot of parents always ask, at a Division I level school, it's all about the sport and not about academics. How does it work at field hockey at Rider University?
Yeah, and that's a great point, because there are misconceptions, and every school is going to be different. I can speak for Rider University. We're very much in tune to, probably because Lori and I have kids of our own, 2 of whom are in college now, of the fact that if you have an academic scholarship, it's important to do well. It's important to maintain your solid GPA, maintain that academic scholarship. Say it's a $10,000 a year scholarship, that's $40,000 over your 4 years. That's something you don't have to pay back or pay up front. And so we really emphasize, the academics as well. We have a thing called study table. All freshmen coming in have to go to study table, and the school rule, I think, is 2.3 GPA, and then if you get a 2.3 or higher, you can get out of study table, which is a required 6 hours a week. We make ours, for field hockey, it's 3.0. If you get a 3.0 or better, then out you come. You can study on your own in your room or whatever. But if you're below a 3.0, you have to continue to be on the study hall list, and you have to go there for six accountable hours that are, you know, logged in. And so there's a fight for that. Everybody fights for that. And I must say, probably for the first time in our 14 years, we have every single player out of study table at the same time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, but usually it's only 1 or 2 after the first semester, because everybody realizes that's the expectation.
Sure.
It's a good thing. It's good for you. And so our team GPA has been very strong over that time.
And what's usually the graduation rate of the team? Is it pretty high?
It is. It is. Now, not every single person that comes in the beginning makes it all the way through 4 years, but we've never had a player who, for instance, flunked out or couldn't make it academically.
They just wanted to transfer to another school or something.
and circumstances come up, but our ratio of kids that we've brought into the program that have exited the program is probably over 90%.
Wow.
Yeah, almost everybody that comes in.
That's good recruiting on you.
Yeah, it is. It is. And like I said, it's not perfect. It's, you know, sometimes, you know, it doesn't work out, you know, for one reason or another.
Yeah.
But almost all the time it does. And that's nice. I think parents are secure in hearing that too.
So what's the type of practice that you do? Is it practice every day? Do you have a fall? Do you have a spring? How does it work for, you know, field hockey?
With field hockey, you have a spring and a fall. The fall is what counts. The fall is when you're going for your conference record and trying to get to that NCAA tournament. And so that begins in late August, and then that takes you through to the NCAA finals, which is about November.
And how many games 15. Is that per se?
Usually it's a 20-game schedule.
Wow.
So 20 games, you know, and then, you know, or 18 games, but then tournaments. So if you play a conference tournament, that would take you to 20, and if you advance past that, 21, maybe 22, 23. So, but it's usually an 18-game schedule, but if you don't have a scrimmage or you don't scrimmage once or twice in the preseason, you can add extra games onto your schedule.
Wow.
So you could schedule like 20 regular season games.
And then in the winter, what do they do?
In the winter, we like to give our girls a break. Right after we finish, we like to give them a couple of weeks to just recoup, get ready for exams, and then they have a long winter break. And
so do you give them some type of like regimen of workouts to do,
that
kind of stuff?
After that 2 weeks of just relax, let your body heal up and get yourself back together, then we start them on a lighter lifting program, lifting and conditioning program, 3 days a week, that they'll do maybe the last week of school on their own. Gotcha. And then we tell them, start that up, you know, maintain that while they're off, because they're off for about 6 weeks in the winter. They're off from mid-December until the end of January.
It's a good thing.
Yeah. And
good thing for you too.
Right. And so when they come back, we don't want them to come back completely out of shape. We say, you know, we're going to start, and we give them time to get their feet wet in their spring semester. So about 3 weeks into that, then we start to work out.
Gotcha.
Less hours in the springtime. We work out like 4 days a week, only about an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Gotcha.
As opposed to in season, we never go over 2 hours with our practices.
And is there any games in the spring?
Yeah, you're allowed 5 competitions, 5 collegiate competitions where you can go against other schools. So what we'll do is we'll sign up for a tournament at, say, Delaware. It's not a bad drive. It's about an hour away. We'll meet about 6 schools there, and then we'll all play a series of like 25-minute games or 30-minute games. So we get to schedule a lot of teams then that maybe wouldn't schedule us during the regular season. We'll get to, you know, see a Syracuse or, you know, somebody, you know, some of the heavy hitters, and we get to go against them in the springtime. Wow. So it's really advantageous for a school like Rider.
And then in the summertime, what are you doing in the summer?
And in the summertime, everybody's on their own. You know, a lot of coaches work camps or run clinics. We run an overnight camp at Rider, which is nice for the local high school kids and kids around the state. And a lot of times we use our kids as staff. And so we get to see them, you know, in the summertime. And a lot of kids will train on their own in the summertime. We give them a guideline. This is what you should be doing as you build up to preseason. Right. And our rule of thumb is usually don't come to preseason for us to get you in shape. Come in shape, and then, you know, and then we go forward from there.
Yeah, so that's good. So all the kids that come into your program, it gives them a on-time type of things where they're working within the system, and then it gives them off time where they're doing their own thing. So these parents that are always saying, Division I is always about all about the sport and nothing else. You're saying that no, you give equal time for both things.
Yeah.
So everybody could graduate.
Yeah. And those parents aren't wrong. Some places are like that. Some places, I mean, they require almost a constant, move forward on their field hockey program. That everything you do is really centered around it. And generally, those are some fully funded programs. Mm-hmm. Just philosophically, with us, we feel like you should love playing and love preparing to play, but you should also love your college community and be like a normal student, a part of that time too as well. So we find that it's a selling point for us, because I think parents realize that we're reasonable, but we don't just say, hey, do whatever you want to do. We don't care. I mean, we're in contact with them constantly, and if something goes wrong or if someone makes a bad decision, we don't mind calling them in and being that coach parent, that
which everybody wants.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It makes you. We try to make them think like what would coach think.
That's true.
If you think of that, you generally make good calls.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show. So usually my last question is, what do you want to tell everyone out there about Rider University and about field hockey at Rider University?
I would say just that, it's a great experience. It's a smaller school. I always say we're not selling the lake on campus, and we don't have a campus that's looking over the Pacific Ocean. But what we do have inside is like a good family knit field hockey team, and we have people within the team that really care about each other. And that the field hockey experience is great. We poke our nose out of the yard and play some big schools, yet we can still take care of business in our conference. We've won 5 years in a row the regular season title, so we think the mixture of that makes for a really good positive experience.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming, Dan. I appreciate it, and thank you for listening to The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva.